If you've not read James Clavell's book or watched the 1980s miniseries, you might just be bawling your head out with FX's Shogun finale. There's a reason why critics have appreciated the makers of this show for ending it on a perfect note. Firstly, as the show's title indicates, a lot clears up in these final moments, as most characters who suffered throughout the show somehow achieve the goal they have always dreamt of. Mariko wanted to clear her father's name or commit seppuku rather than living in disgrace, but in turn, her sacrifice served as the ultimate catalyst Toranaga needed to turn the council in his favor. Even Fuji wanted to kill herself, ever since her son and husband had to commit seppuku in the first episode. The finale finally frees her from Toranaga's service, allowing Fuji to share one last moment of bonding with Blackthorn before leaving on her journey to become a nun and rebuilding her life with a new sense of purpose. The sheer beauty of Shogun lies in the show's beautifully crafted details, right from the beginning to the end. Dream of a Dream brings us to the end, in a full circle moment. The Shogun finale does leave us wondering about what ultimately happens to John Blackthorn. Ever since he set foot in Japan during the first episode, he's been trying to leave, even though he eventually rose to power as Toranaga's Hatamoto. In the final moments of episode 10, after Toranaga's big plan is revealed, Blackthorn is one of the few who make it through everything alive. But did our favorite pilot get his heart's wish? Let's find out. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. What did Mariko's cross mean for John? The finale of Shogun begins with a scene of a much older John on his deathbed, clutching a cross in the palm of his hands, while his grandchildren keep inquiring about his ultimate battle against the savages of Japan. At first, this scene will make you think it's a glimpse of John Blackthorn's future after his adventures in Japan, but the rest of the episode keeps on dropping hints to make us understand the real mystery behind John's fate. One of the most interesting differences between Blackthorn's dreams and the reality in Shogun is about Mariko's cross. The cross that the old Blackthorn was seen holding onto was given to him by Mariko when he offered to assist her during her seppuku attempt in episode 9. The cross actually symbolized the spiritual connection they both shared, something which was first hinted at earlier, during their trip to the Willow World. And this is exactly what brings us to one of the best scenes of Shogun, revolving around Mariko's cross. One of Shogun's standout scenes, not just in the finale but in the entire series, is when Fuji and Blackthorn talk on the boat as their shared grief brings them closer. Although they had been friends since Blackthorn became Hatamoto, episode 10 deepens their bond because of their shared sorrow. Fuji had been grieving for her husband and baby since the show began, while Blackthorn was dealing with Mariko's loss. So, when she was about to leave, Blackthorn asked her to join him for a ritual she was not very familiar with. Now, Fuji had been holding on to the ashes of her husband and child, struggling to part with the last of what's left of them. So, the Anjin introduced her to the ritual of scattering their ashes into the sea, believing it would ensure that her family flows with the calmness of the sea forever. Whenever Fuji felt the sea, she would feel the embrace of the family she had lost. Similarly, John had also come to terms with his grief, especially when it came to letting go of Mariko's cross. Even though the finale opens with Blackthorn dreaming of growing old with Mariko's cross, in reality, he releases it into the sea, easing his soul from being haunted by his true love's brutal end. And like I've said before, what makes this version of Shogun special is the intricate details woven within each scene. For example, this particular boat scene was not even mentioned in the book, as Fuji's character in the show took a different path from the original story. But all these changes made the show necessarily better. Even though Blackthorn and Fuji struggled to understand each other without a translator, their friendship made their final scene perfect. Plus, there's a huge connection between this boat scene and the first episode of Shogun. In the first episode, Fuji had to end her son's life during her husband's seppuku, and Mariko came to support her, asking her hands to be the last one to hold her son, instead of letting the guards take his life. Similarly, in her last scene, Fuji asked John's hands to be the last ones to hold Mariko, before he lets go of her cross to the sea. In a way, this was the closure John needed, even if it was not the one he desired. If Blackthorn had kept holding on to the past and returned to England, he would have lived a sad life, always mourning Mariko, while being haunted by her death. By letting the last essence of their loved ones go, both Blackthorn and Fuji were able to move on and accept life's natural cycle of living and dying. Does John's dream come true? While I'm not exactly sure what Blackthorn's visions or dream in the final episode actually meant, it's safe to assume that John never makes it back to England despite the future he visualizes. I think it's more of the show's indication of what John's life would look like if he had returned back to England. The scene as he looks helplessly toward the ceiling inside a lavish room while holding onto Mariko's cross is an implication on how he would be plagued by Mariko's death for the rest of his life, even if he did escape back home and tried to start fresh. In a way, Mariko's death worked as a form of spiritual awakening in John, as he mellowed down to find his purpose in life, while finding a true sense of understanding about God. It is possible that even though he understands that Toranaga is continuing to manipulate him, he still stays behind to serve him, like Mariko had. If it wasn't for Toranaga, he would never cross paths with the love of his life, and it is in her memory that John continues to be selfless and kind, which is possibly why John offered to lay down his life to protest against Toranaga torturing the villagers without any reason. This was the first selfless act John was seen to do in Shogun, allowing us to understand how Mariko's sacrifice had made him a changed man. So after preventing John from committing seppuku and agreeing to stop the torment on the villagers, Lord Toranaga had ordered him to make a new ship for him. Although he never directly reveals anything. In his last conversation with Yabushige, Toranaga finally accepts being the one to secretly burn down John's ship in order to stop him from leaving Japan, and save his life from the Portuguese. Toranaga had grown very fond of John, and believed it was never his destiny to leave Japan. So if John dreams of growing old in England, it remains just that, a dream. And now that Mariko-sama had given him the gift of life before hers ended, John wanted to make the best of it, respecting everything that his beloved stood for. So, as he lets go of Mariko's cross, John also lets go of the man he used to be and the life he came from. Now that Toranaga has achieved his destiny, what happens to John? At the end of Shogun, when Lord Toranaga finally unveils his strategy to confront Ishido's army in the Battle of Sekigahara, we realize that his plan fully relied on the sacrifices of Hiromatsu and Mariko. Even though the unfortunate death of his son, Nagakado, bought him the time he needed to bring his plan to fruition, it was ultimately Mariko's violent sacrifice against Ishido's tyranny in Osaka, which allowed him to carefully secure Ochiba no Kata's pledge of allegiance to him in secret. This finally became the Achilles heel in Ishido's plans to take down Toranaga and his ambitions of becoming shogun. In the final moments, when John Blackthorne realizes the significance of Mariko's negotiations with Father Martin and the church before her death, he makes sure not to let Mariko's powerful gift go to waste. So despite his ship being burnt down, Blackthorne continues to be seen as a valuable asset by Toranaga, akin to the human Goshok. And it certainly does help the Lord's case when Blackthorne finds peace in honoring Mariko through his service to him. Plus, Toranaga seems to adore John, which possibly stems from the comfort and laughter that Blackthorne brings to his feud-filled life. So after all these events, it is possible that with Toranaga's help, Blackthorne will rebuild his ship from the remnants of the old one, potentially giving him enough time to witness the new Japan that Toranaga envisions under his rule, as the former Lord of Kanto establishes himself as the new shogun after Ishido's expected defeat at Sekigahara. Blackthorne may realize that being a trusted ally of Toranaga isn't a bad position to be in, given that he was just a pilot back in England. John could even regain his position as Toranaga's Hatamoto, or rise through the ranks, given that the book ends with him becoming the Shogun's most trusted advisor. Do you guys believe this is the best ending for John Blackthorne? Let us know in the comment box below. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone!